Today's question review session is going to go over a little bit of cells as well as cell energy. I know Ms. Tyson talked about photosynthesis and cellular respiration this week, and so as well as division, and we did cover a little bit of the mitosis and meiosis last week, so I'm not going to do that again, but I did have a couple questions about the cell membrane that I wanted to go back over. So I actually already went through this with a couple students and forgot to hit record, so I just wanted to make a recording real quick for any of you that wanted to come back and watch this after you were not able to join us at the original time. So here's a question about plants. It says terrestrial plants have stomata on the surface of their leaves. A single stoma is surrounded by two guard cells that change shape in response to environmental factors and open or close the stoma. Which of the following best explains how the structure of the leaf is used in processes that occur in the plant? So we went through these possible choices and we determined that the correct possible answer was B. Gases for photosynthesis are exchanged through the surface of the leaf, because stomata are little holes or pores in the leaf surface that allow for those gases to come in and out. The reason A was not correct is because water does not enter the plant through the leaves. It actually enters the plant through the roots. It exits the plant's leaves through transpiration, which is a type of evaporation, but that's an exit only. So enter is where we get the wrong, what makes that statement wrong. C is also not correct. It says energy for cellular reproduction is absorbed through the surface of the leaf, and although sunlight does get absorbed through the leaf, it is not used for cellular respiration. That light energy is used to make glucose. And then D is not correct as well, because it says that carbon dioxide enters the plant through the surface of the leaf for cellular respiration. And again, yes, even though carbon dioxide will enter the plant through the leaf for photosynthesis, it is not going to enter for cellular respiration. So cellular respiration is where we get the wrong answer here. Cellular respiration does not use carbon dioxide, it produces it. So if we're entering the plant, this would have had to say photosynthesis to be correct. So on this slide is just an overview of photosynthesis and the different parts of the plant and which parts do what. So you can see the reactants for photosynthesis are the light energy and the carbon dioxide and the water. Carbon dioxide does enter the plant through those stomata, the little pores that are found on the leaves. Again, it's used for photosynthesis, though, by entering through this way. And then the light energy gets absorbed through the chlorophyll, which are found in the chloroplast in the leaf cells. And water is going to be absorbed through is going to come in through the roots. The products of photosynthesis are oxygen and the sugar. So oxygen does leave the leaf through the stomata, again, through the process of photosynthesis. And the sugar is going to be produced and stored in the tissues within the cell or used for cell energy. Okay. These next three questions are going to have to do with the cell membrane. So in this particular question, we get the diagram with labels. A lot of information is provided about the cell membrane being a double layer of lipids and having proteins embedded that act like gates and allow only certain particles to enter or leave. Just that first two sentences tells us a lot about the cell membrane. So I mentioned to the students that were in here earlier, use these question stems and diagrams that are provided to you to help you answer your question. And it might even help you on a question that it doesn't go to. Don't be afraid to use the test to help you out. There are always, the answers tend to be in the test somewhere. Okay? So the question here says the sodium-potassium ion pump that's found in some cell membranes is made of which of the following basic structural components? So in here we know that it tells us that the proteins act like gates, and down in this part it tells us that a sodium-potassium pump is an example of a type of carrier protein that uses a large portion of energy to move sodium ions through the cell membrane. So it tells us that it's a protein. So that is how we came to the answer as being A, amino acids, because we know that amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. Fatty acids are the building blocks of lipids, monosaccharides are the building blocks of carbohydrates, and nucleotides are the building blocks of nucleic acids. So the only correct answer here would be A, amino acids. And again, because of this question stem telling us already that the pump is a protein, that kind of helps lead us in the right direction. So this is just a chart to review those different organic compounds and their monomers or their building blocks. So proteins, as we already mentioned, are building blocks of amino acids. Carbohydrates have a building block of monosaccharides, and they're primarily used for energy. Lipids are going to have a building block of fatty acids in most lipids, although some are not going to have that. But the primary use of lipids is for storage or insulation, structure of the cell membrane. And then nucleic acids are going to have a building block of a nucleotide, and these are our DNA and RNA, which store and transfer our genetic information. Another question dealing with the same question stem with the cell membrane says, what is the primary function of the cell membrane? Correct answer here is B, defending against foreign particles, because again, it tells us in that first two sentences, many of these proteins act like gates, allowing only certain particles to enter or leave. So it tells us right there that it is going to be controlling what comes in and out. So out of these different choices, B is the one that is closest to controlling what comes in and out. The next question that goes with this particular stem is, why does the study of cell membranes lead to a better understanding of cell function? Again, the correct answer is D. All materials needed for cell functions must pass through the cell membrane. We know that the cell membrane controls what comes in and out, so this is the best answer here. A says all cell functions occur at the cell membrane. That is not correct, okay, because we know that there are going to be things that happen in the mitochondria and things that happen in the Golgi apparatus, so functions occur all over the cell. D, all energy transfers occur at the cell membrane. Again, we know that's not correct because of the mitochondria being a big part of energy transfer. And then C was not correct. It says that all cell membranes contain the information for making proteins. We know that's not correct because the information for making proteins comes from our DNA, which is primarily stored in the nucleus. All right, these are two separate questions here. The first one says, oxygen is a product of photosynthesis, and the primary role of this oxygen in cellular respiration is going to be to do what? So what does oxygen do in cellular respiration? Well, it is going to be. B is the correct answer. It is going to act as an acceptor for electrons and hydrogens and form water. A was not correct. It says yields energy in the form of ATP as it is passed down the respiratory chain. Although this sounds correct because ATP does get formed in cellular respiration and there is a chain and oxygen is involved in that, respiratory chain is not a correct terminology, okay? So that is what makes this not correct. Respiratory chain is not correct here, okay? C is not correct because it says that the oxygen will combine with carbon, forming CO2, and that is not where the oxygen goes. Although carbon dioxide is formed, it does not form from the oxygen that's inhaled. And then the carbon, D was not correct, that this combines with lactate to form pyruvate. We know that pyruvate is going to come from breaking down glucose, and lactate only comes when we don't have oxygen available and have to use a fermentation or anaerobic respiration for our ATP. So that's why D was not correct. Next question here, what are the reactants for cellular respiration? Well, cellular respiration is the breakdown of glucose into usable energy of ATP. So that means we have to have glucose as our as a reactant. So we know that A can't be correct because there's no glucose here, and B can't be correct because there's no glucose here. So it can only be either B or C. So which one does respiration use? Does it use oxygen to start with, or does it use carbon dioxide? And hopefully you know that oxygen is necessary for the cellular respiration to take place because carbon dioxide is going to be a product of cellular respiration. Okay, so B would be the correct answer. So here's just a picture of cellular respiration to give you an overview. The equation is here at the top. We have glucose, which is C6H12O6. That's going to be combined with oxygen to give us carbon dioxide, water, and then the ATP energy. And it takes place in 3 different steps as long as oxygen's available. Starts in the cytoplasm with the glycolysis here, okay, and that's where the glucose gets initially broken down into the pyruvate. The pyruvate then enters into the mitochondria, in which it goes through the Krebs cycle, also called the citric acid cycle, and the electron transport. And this is where the oxygen comes in to be an acceptor, an electron acceptor. So that way the electrons can go through this electron transport and give us a lot of energy to produce ATP. And while it does that, it then combines with hydrogen to form that water, and then the carbon dioxide is another byproduct that is produced. So a comparison of the 2 main processes. Photosynthesis is on the left, cellular respiration is on the right. Photosynthesis only happens in plants or autotrophs that are able to make their own food. Cellular respiration happens in both plants and animals. Okay? Big misconception. A lot of students think that one happens in one and one happens in the other, and there's, that's it, but that's not the case. Cellular respiration happens in both plants and animals. So just plants for photosynthesis, but they both do the respiration. They both have to take that glucose food and convert it to ATP, because that's the energy, that source or currency that the cell is able to actually utilize. Photosynthesis takes place in the chloroplast. Cellular respiration will take place in cytoplasm and the mitochondria as long as oxygen is available. If oxygen is not available, it would only happen in the cytoplasm and then undergo fermentation. Photosynthesis is going to use as reactants carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight. Cellular respiration uses oxygen and glucose. Photosynthesis produces oxygen and glucose as the products. Cellular respiration produces the carbon dioxide, water, and ATP energy. So they are opposites of one another as far as their reactions are concerned. The products of photosynthesis are the reactants. Just draw a line. And then the cellular respiration, and the reactants of photosynthesis are the products of cellular respiration. So they are opposites. All right, and that is it for today. And next week we are going to be reviewing DNA and genetics. Thank you guys, and have a wonderful day.